Life was always unfair for Famicha. In her world, everyone receives a magical blessing at age 5, ranked by stars, with 5 stars being the best. Famicha got the ability to tame monsters, but with 0 stars, making it completely useless. She couldn't even control small animals. Her village, once accepting, began to reject her. Her parents, once loving, turned to hate her. She had to run from her village, chased by bounty hunters. She changed her name to Ivy and disguised herself as a boy by cutting her hair, hoping to avoid capture. Despite everything, Ivy didn't give up because she had something special memories of her past life from another world. The voice of her past self gave her advice on how to live. Along her journey, she befriended a tiny slime named Sora. Together, the weakest duo set off to the capital, where Ivy believed she'd finally find her purpose. One day, as Ivy fled through a forest, she gathered supplies from a hidden spot. She muttered to herself how she gave up on happiness long ago as an unwanted child cast away by her parents. She wondered if she had done something in her past life to deserve this misfortune. While scavenging at a dumping ground, she was nearly pierced by discarded spears, but found a jacket and a map that could help her. Yet, despite this small victory, dark thoughts reminded her she was just a child living off trash. Later, Ivy saw a monster tamer feeding slimes with garbage. As she watched, she overheard the man mention a bounty on her head, dead or alive. Fleeing again, she found herself in a marsh, where a gust of wind sent slimes bouncing around her. She ran until she reached a forest, fell down a cliff, and healed herself with potions. Afterward, she cut her hair and disguised herself as a boy, preparing for her new life. She soon encountered a tiny slime on a leaf, which her monster guidebook identified as a rare but weak creature. Ivy was happy to find something as weak as she was. The slime, Sora, was so fragile it could disappear from a gust of wind. Ivy carefully turned it right side up, knowing it might die within a day. Despite this, she felt a connection to the tiny slime. Ivy reflected on how unfair the world was, where everyone received magical skills at age 5. Her parents had basic skills like carpentry and needlework, but Ivy was given the ability to tame monsters without any stars. Starless tamers were worthless, and she was cast out because of it. But she still had the memories of her past life, even if they were unclear and sometimes unhelpful. The only person who had been kind to her was a fortune teller, who gave Ivy a magic bag and taught her many things. Unfortunately, the fortune teller had recently passed, leaving Ivy alone. One morning, Ivy feared that the slime might have disappeared, but it was still there. She learned from her guidebook that to tame a monster, she needed to share her magical energy with it. If the monster accepted it, she could then name it. Unsure if she could do it as a starless tamer, Ivy tried anyway, giving the slime the name Sora, meaning sky. When the naming succeeded, Ivy felt excited for the first time in a long while. Embracing her new identity as Ivy, she and Sora set off on their journey together, determined to survive despite the world's unfairness. A mouse wanders into a trap Ivy set, making it the 10th one she's caught. She's happy to have mice to eat later and wraps them in leaves, storing them in her bag. Looking at her map, she sees her hometown, Latomi Village, and notes that the royal capital is far off. She plans to stop in Otolva before the map ends. She catches Sora, her tiny slime companion, before the breeze blows him away. Startled by some noise, she hides in a tree and is horrified to see a herd of huge ants pass by, though they don't notice her. After they leave, Ivy holds up Sora and wonders if he's grown a bit. She notices a cut on her cheek and heals it with a potion, but worries about missing supplies. As she continues walking, she spots a wanted poster with her face on it, offering a reward of $500. She's confused by the high reward, and her past self whispers that it's because she's a wanted fugitive, which makes her feel like a villain. Annoyed, she rips up an ugly drawing of her on the poster, but laughs at another, more flattering version. When Ivy reaches the next town, she feels a little jealous of the townsfolk and their casual use of magic. She considers selling her mice to a butcher, but gets nervous. The butcher, sensing the mice with his level 2 odor skill, approaches her. He's excited about the fresh meat and buys them for $100, telling Ivy he'll gladly buy more anytime. With money in hand, Ivy looks at the bread shop hungry, but hesitates before finally going in. She asks what she can buy with $100, and the owner explains she could buy the whole shelf. She happily purchases some bread and leaves. That evening, Ivy sits in a tree, eager to eat her bread. She splits it with Sora, but discovers he can't eat it, unsure of what he might prefer. The next day, Ivy finds a pile of trash and comes across baskets of potions, but they're expired and discolored. To her surprise, Sora absorbs the potion bottles, a skill rare high-level slimes have. She tests this with more trash, but Sora only absorbs blue potions, not red ones. Ivy continues selling mice to the butcher, buying more bread, and bathing in the nearby river. She wishes she could stay in this village forever, where people are kind to her, unlike the harsh memories of her father who cast her aside. But one day, while passing adventurers, she's reminded of the bounty hunter chasing her and panics. She sees her wanted poster at the butcher's stall and flees, running past the bread shop where the owner baked her favorite bread. Ivy feels guilty and cries that night, knowing she must leave the village. The next day, unsure of where to go, Ivy finds a golden apple tree, only to realize it's a monster that eats adventurers. She tries to escape but gets hurt by a vicious attack on her wrist. Suddenly, Sora begins to glow, and Ivy remembers slimes eat people too. A man is carving wood when he hears a baby cry. He rushes upstairs to find the midwife holding his newborn daughter. His wife, Fulf, asks what they should name her, and he chooses Femicia, making the baby giggle. As years pass, Femicia grows into a kind girl, helping her father and older brother, Phaeton, with their work. During lunch one day, Femicia nearly chokes, and her father uses magic to fill her cup with water. The family laughs, filled with joy at their happy life. That evening, Femicia helps her mother and sister, Facilla, prepare dinner. They discuss magic, with Phaeton teasing her about learning it soon. Femicia dreams of becoming a tamer, able to befriend dragons and monsters, though her brother finds the idea silly. Her parents encourage her, knowing that everyone's skill is revealed on their 5th birthday as a blessing from the gods. As her birthday approaches, the family becomes excited to discover Femicia's skill. On the day of the ceremony, the village priest performs the ritual. At first, the family is thrilled when Femicia is revealed to have the tamer skill. But their happiness turns to shock when the priest announces she is starless, meaning her skill has no stars and no power. He declares that she is abandoned by the gods, and the family is devastated. At home, her father, distraught and drunk, lashes out, breaking a wooden horse he had made for her. He angrily questions how a starless child could be born in their family and accuses Femicia of being a disgrace. Her brother, once kind, shoves her, telling her to leave. Even her sister Facilla turns cold. Feeling lost and betrayed, Femicia runs away. In the village, people whisper and throw stones at her, believing she is a curse. She flees into the forest, cold and hungry, and collapses. She wakes to find Luba, the village fortune teller, who has cared for her. Luba explains that being starless makes Femicia a target, and she must leave the village to find safety. She gives Femicia a magic bag and some supplies, urging her to seek out people she can trust. 3 years later, Femicia lives in the wilderness, scavenging for food. She overhears villagers talking about Luba's death and learns that her father and the village head have placed a bounty on her. Her father, who once loved her, now believes she should be killed. Heartbroken, she flees into the forest, collapsing in despair. She resigns herself to her fate, thinking even her slime companion, Sora, will eat her. However, Sora surprises her by healing her wounds. This small act of kindness gives Femicia hope. Despite her pain, she decides to keep living as long as she has Sora by her side.